There was a time when I hated English, not because it was hard, but because it made me feel small. Every time I tried to study, it reminded me of how far I still had to go, how many words I didn't know, how many mistakes I still made. I remember sitting at my desk one night, watching an English video. I could understand a few sentences at the beginning, but then my brain just shut down. The speaker talked too fast, my focus disappeared, and I found myself scrolling on my phone again, promising that tomorrow I'd try harder. But tomorrow came, and nothing changed. I tried new study methods, downloaded new apps, watched motivational videos, but the truth was I didn't enjoy it. I didn't love English. I just wanted the results of loving it. The fluency, the confidence, the success, without the process itself. And because of that, every time I opened my book, it felt like work. It felt like punishment. Until one day, something strange happened. It was a Sunday morning. I had spent the whole week telling myself I'd study, but every day ended the same, with excuses. That morning, I looked in the mirror and said out loud, maybe I'm just not good at languages. But then I stopped. That sentence, I'm not good at languages, sounded familiar. I realized I had been repeating it for years, like a quiet background song in my mind. Every time I failed, that voice got louder. So I decided to do an experiment. I told myself, what if the problem isn't English? What if the problem is how my brain feels about it? Because the truth is, our brains don't hate learning. They just hate pain.
And this is
And
a
for
very
me,
interesting concept.
English had become painful, full of guilt, pressure, and self-judgment.
Nailed it.
So I made a small decision that morning. I wouldn't study English anymore. I would play with it. The first rule of my experiment was simple. No pressure. No guilt. Only curiosity.
Look at this meme.
I started small. I opened YouTube and searched for funny English commercials.
So funny.
I watched one with subtitles, a silly one about a talking cat ordering pizza. And I laughed. It was stupid, but for the first time in
That made me
months,
laugh
English
out
made me
loud.
smile. Then I watched another one, and another. Before I knew it, an hour had passed. Not because I forced myself, but because I wanted to.
Oh my
That night,
goodness.
I wrote down a simple sentence in my notebook. Today, English felt like fun. It wasn't a big achievement, but it was different. After that, I started to notice something fascinating. Whenever I felt good while learning English, I remembered more. The new words stayed longer in my mind. And when I felt bored or frustrated, everything disappeared. I realized something powerful. My brain wasn't lazy. It just followed the reward. If I connected English with pleasure, it gave me energy. If I connected it with pain, it shut down. So I decided to trick my brain to turn learning into something it wanted. I made small changes. I stopped using boring textbooks. I started watching stories that made me feel something happy, sad, inspired. I repeated lines from movies I loved, pretending I was the actor. I made silly English memes for myself. And little by little, my brain began to change.
I'm getting
I
better.
didn't have to push it anymore. It started to pull me instead. One day, I was listening to an English podcast about habits. The host said something that stuck with me. Your brain doesn't care what you learn. It only cares how you feel when you learn it. That sentence changed everything. From then on, I stopped saying, I have to study. Instead, I asked, what do I want to explore today? Some days, it was music lyrics. Other days, it was movie scenes or emotional English stories. Sometimes I'd read comments in English on YouTube and try to guess what emotions people were expressing. It didn't feel like studying anymore. It felt like connecting. And connection is the secret language the brain understands best. After a few weeks, I noticed a pattern. Whenever I finished a small English task, like understanding a new phrase or completing a short video, I felt a spark of pride. So I decided to celebrate it. Every time I learned something, I gave myself a small reward. A smile, a short walk, even a piece of chocolate. It sounds childish, but it worked. My brain started to associate English with success, not failure. Each session became something I looked forward to. That's when I realized the truth. You don't need to force discipline when your brain enjoys the process. After 1 month,
Hello,
I could feel the
everyone.
difference.
I'm a little nervous,
I didn't need
but I will
reminders or
try my
motivation
best.
videos anymore. English started to appear naturally in my day, in songs, subtitles, random thoughts. I caught myself thinking in English sometimes, small things like, where'd I put my keys? Or, that's interesting. It made me laugh. A few months earlier, English had felt like an enemy. Now, it was becoming a friend. And I realized something beautiful.
Sometimes I
You
like to
don't
look
have
at
to
myself
fight your
in the
brain
mirror
to
and
learn.
talk about my
You
feelings.
just have to invite
It
it.
really helps.
Later, I read about how the brain actually works. When you enjoy something, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical of motivation and reward. That dopamine tells your neurons, this is important. Remember this. That's why we can remember song lyrics so easily, even in another language. But forget vocabulary lists we forced ourselves to memorize. Learning happens best when emotion is involved. So every time I felt a spark, curiosity, joy, even sadness, while learning English, my brain was literally rewiring itself.
You're kidding.
It wasn't just
You're
learning
kidding.
English
I can't
anymore.
believe
It was learning to love English. I started turning small things into playful challenges. Shadow
my
this
best
scene
comment yet. I hope
perfectly.
everyone loves
I'd
it.
imitate actors for movies. Understand this song without subtitles.
This is my best
Find
comment yet.
one
I
new
hope
English
everyone
word
loves
in
it.
a YouTube comment today. Each one was a micro game. Each one gave me a small win. I didn't realize it then, but I was creating a feedback loop, a system that kept rewarding me for trying. And when your brain expects reward, motivation becomes automatic. It's not discipline anymore, it's momentum. One evening, I was at a cafe reading an English article on my phone. A stranger sitting nearby leaned over and said, "You're reading that in English? That's cool." I smiled and said, "Yeah, I actually enjoy it now." And as soon as I said it, I froze. Did I just say that? Did I just admit that I enjoy learning English? That was the first time I realized my experiment had worked. I didn't need tricks anymore. My brain had already learned the new pattern. English equals good feeling. After that, everything changed. I started speaking more with strangers, online, with friends. Even when I made mistakes, I laughed instead of hiding.
Hello.
Because now,
It's so good
English
to
wasn't
see
a
you
test.
again.
It was a tool
Yes,
to
it's
connect,
really great to be
express, and explore. I started journaling in English, watching emotional short stories before bed, writing small reflections about my day. The more I did it, the more it felt like me. That's when I realized fluency isn't about perfect grammar. It's about comfort. It's about the relationship you have with the language. And I had finally built a loving one. Looking back, I see that I didn't really trick my brain. I just gave it what it always needed: safety, reward, and meaning. When your brain feels safe, no fear of failure, rewarded, small wins, and connected emotional meaning, it learns naturally. So the real trick isn't to study harder. It's to study happier. To turn learning from something you should do into something you get to do. Now, every morning when I open an English story, I don't feel pressure anymore. I feel calm,
Hello, friend.
curious, Sometimes I still struggle. Sometimes I don't understand everything. But that's okay, because I know the feeling will come. That small spark of joy when a sentence suddenly makes sense, when I recognize a word, when I finish a story and think, wow, I understood that. Those moments are everything. They remind me why I started. Not to be perfect, but to grow. If I could tell my past self one thing, it would be this: you don't need to fall in love with English. You just need to spend enough time with it until your brain does.
Cat.
Because love doesn't happen at
Cat.
first sight. It happens through repeated small moments, small victories, small laughs, small discoveries. And one day, without realizing it, you wake up and
This is
think,
the
I
word
actually like
cat.
this now. That's the
Cat.
power of consistent,
Cat.
positive emotion. Now, when people ask me, how did you become fluent? I don't talk about grammar, vocabulary, or study hours. I talk about feelings. I tell
That's
them,
good.
I made
That's
my
good.
brain associate English with happiness. And once it did, everything else followed. That's the trick. That's the secret I wish someone had told me years ago.
Hello, everyone.
Because the
and
hardest
welcome
part of
to our
learning
lesson
English
today.
isn't grammar. It's fighting your own resistance. It's changing the story your brain tells itself. Once your brain believes that learning feels good, it will want more every day. If you're watching this and struggling to love English, please remember this: there's nothing wrong with you. Your brain isn't broken. It just needs a new experience, one that feels rewarding, not punishing. Find something small that makes you smile in English today. A funny video, a beautiful quote, a story that touches your heart. That's where the love begins. Start there and keep going, because one day your brain will thank you. It will realize that English isn't something to escape. It's something to enjoy. And when that happens, everything will change. Your confidence, your fluency, your future. So if you take one thing from this story, let it be this: you don't learn English because you love it. You love English because you learn it with joy, curiosity, and heart. Now it's your turn. Find one thing in English that makes you feel good: a story, a song, a sentence. Spend just 20 minutes with it today and smile, because in that small moment, you're not just studying English, you're rewiring your brain to love it.